So we've got a major new development in the nationwide fight over the ATF's pistol brace rule. The Trump DOJ agreed that the Biden-era brace rule is officially vacated, and another major pistol brace case has now been dismissed. But in one of the last remaining lawsuits brought by GOA in the state of Texas, a new court filing just exposed something very big. GOA has now filed a response revealing that even after the rule was struck down, the DOJ has continued enforcing the same underlying legal theory in criminal prosecutions just without calling it a pistol brace rule. And in this motion to dismiss, the DOJ is not denying that interpretation, but instead they are arguing that courts can't stop them from using that legal theory. So let's talk about what is going on right now in this critical pistol brace challenge. Now, before we jump into this video, if you want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to subscribe. You can also click the like button. That just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of content and it shares it with you and more people as well. I also want to thank one of the main supporters of this channel, which is Attorneys on Retainer. When it comes to self-defense protection, in my opinion, AOR is in a league of their own. They're backed by an actual law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom, and they're always trying to expand upon their benefits and give you as much as possible as a member. In fact, one of the new things that they just revealed at their conference is that they also added in a hero clause where, they're going to be taking cases with these regulatory issues where maybe you're carrying in a gun-free zone and you have to defend someone. Maybe you're not charged with, a self-defense case. It doesn't go to trial or anything like that. But with the hero clause, they're still going to cover you. So they are adding so much to their benefits. If you're interested, you can check them out using the link down below. And if you use my code ARMEDSCHOLAR, you can get $25 off of your signup fee. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that the fight against the Biden administration's pistol brace rule started a while back. And that rule put in place by the Biden administration claimed that most brace pistols were actually SBRs for the purposes of the NFA. Multiple lawsuits were then filed against that, and eventually Judge Reed O'Connor struck down the rule entirely in the mock case and issued a nationwide vacatur. The Biden DOJ appealed that ruling to the Fifth Circuit, but after that, the administration changed over, and the Trump DOJ decided to drop that appeal and concede the case. That meant that the pistol brace rule was officially struck down nationwide. After that happened, most of the remaining pistol brace lawsuits were dismissed as moot because the ATF agreed that the rule no longer existed. Currently, the lawsuit filed by GOA and also the state of Texas is one of the last pistol brace cases still standing. And in this case, there have been some new developments which have raised some red flags on whether it has actually been a good idea for the other cases to be dismissed as moot. In the GOA case, GOA and the state of Texas are asking the court for something very different from some of these other lawsuits. They are not asking just for the court to recognize that the brace rule is now gone. They are also asking for the court here to issue a permanent injunction blocking the ATF from enforcing its underlying legal theory. Now, that legal theory that the ATF still holds is that brace pistols can be treated as SBRs, short-barreled rifles under the NFA, based purely on the statutory interpretation in text alone. So in other words, GOA is trying to stop the ATF from saying, we're not enforcing the brace rule anymore, but we still believe that brace pistols are SBRs under the text and statute alone. This case is designed to prevent any current or future administration from reviving pistol brace restrictions without passing a new rule. Now, here's where things are getting kind of concerning. The Trump DOJ recently filed its motion to dismiss the GOA case. And in that motion, the Trump DOJ makes a statement that shows exactly why this case really matters. They say that the court cannot enjoin the ATF from enforcing legal theories, only final agency rules. They argue that because the pistol brace rule no longer exists, the court has no authority to block the ATF's interpretation that brace pistols are SBRs. In other words, they are not denying that they hold that legal view. They are only saying that the court cannot stop them from using it, and that is a huge red flag. GOA in Texas warned the court about this exact scenario, and that is the reason why they want that permanent injunction, which could stop the ATF from, trying to put this in place currently or any future administration from trying to do a similar thing. They explained that the mock case only struck down the rule on procedural grounds. It did not reject the ATF's underlying interpretation of the NFA, which means that a future administration could revive brace enforcement without writing even a new rule. They could simply try to do it under this legal theory that the ATF still holds. and the ATF could selectively target gun owners again using that same legal theory. And so that's kind of the sneaky part, and that is kind of the underlying issue that's going on in this case. The ATF dropped the pistol brace rule, but they are keeping the underlying legal justification that could be used, going forward to place a new rule in place, or just try to do this based on the statutory text. But GOA in Texas have now filed their response to why this lawsuit should not be dismissed as moot like the other pistol brace cases. First, GOA argues that the case is not moot simply because the pistol brace rule was vacated by Judge O'Connor's ruling. They say that the government is still enforcing the same underlying interpretation of the NFA, just without formally calling it a pistol brace rule. The harm isn't just the rule itself. The harm is the ATF's interpretation that brace pistols qualify as short-barreled rifles. Now, second, GOA points out that the Toronto prosecution in Washington, D.C. Is an example of this underlying theory that the ATF is still enforcing. In that case, the DOJ charged someone with possessing an SBR, and the firearm was simply a braced pistol. The government claimed that it was not relying on the vacated rule. Instead, it argued that it was applying the statutory definition of an SBR. But GOA shows that the government used the same factors that appeared in the vacated rule. Things like length of pull, surface area, and other basic specific criteria that was also included in that pistol brace rule. So even though the rule is now gone, the interpretation is still being applied and used in these cases. Third, GOA emphasizes that the government has never said it rejects the theory that brace pistols are SBRs. Instead, the DOJ argues that courts cannot enjoin legal theories, only formal agency rules. So in other words, the DOJ is not saying that they will not enforce that idea. They are saying that courts can't stop them from enforcing it, and so GOA is pointing out that is exactly why this injunction is now needed. Now finally, GOA relies heavily on Fifth Circuit precedent, showing that a challenge to a regulation is also a challenge to the underlying statutory enforcement and legal theory. An agency cannot moot a case simply by rescinding the rule while continuing to enforce the same statutory interpretation. The burden is on the government to prove the conduct won't recur, and here they've done the exact opposite. They're showing that they will still go after braced pistols, potentially as SBRs. So in this case, GOA's argument boils down to this. The brace rule may be vacated, but the ATF is still enforcing the same interpretations of the NFA. And unless the court issues a permanent injunction, nothing stops the ATF or a future administration from continuing to treat braced pistols as short-barreled rifles under the statutory language. So that's where things stand right now in the pistol brace lawsuits and battles that are currently going on in this specific case. The formal brace rule is now struck down under that mock decision, but the GOA case is now the last line of defense to prevent future rules from popping up or from the administration regulating braced pistols just based on the NFA's text. And this case may determine whether pistol brace restrictions are truly gone or just waiting to come back in a different form. So we will now wait to see how the court moves forward in this case. What do they say about this current legal theory that potentially the Trump DOJ is still trying to enforce on pistol braces, or if they're going to find that this case is now moot. So again, that's where this case currently stands. As we get more information, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you'd like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to like, comment, and subscribe. All of those things help to fuel the algorithm and just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of 2A content and it should share it to more people. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.